Hello, I'm Kevin Hayward from KSH Safety Services. Can you guess what my middle name is? Safety is my middle name, and that's the name of my podcast.
KSH, 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 KSH. Safety is his middle name.
Yeah, I've seen something similar in the past. Yeah. Excellent.
Good film.
Thanks, Melissa. Hello, my guest today is Melissa Fazackerley from Dimension Health and Safety. Welcome, Melissa. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Are
Good. Yeah, great. Good to have you here. Tell me a bit about yourself.
you? Okay, so I am the director and founder of Dimension Health and Safety. We focus on ISO management systems, leadership and executive coaching. And I am the founder of the Safety Social. And I have recently joined IIRSM for with a position as a council member with the trustees.
Brilliant. What's your background before that, before you set your business up? Just a little, how long have you been in health and safety in that side?
So my history in health and safety has always been in construction. So started in house building, went into commercial build, and then more recently in cladding, which has obviously had its own kind of industry overhaul and scrutiny recently. So yeah, but then back in 2023, I set up Dimension Health and Safety.
Fantastic. We'll talk a bit about the construction side a little bit later in the podcast. You mentioned a few minutes ago the Safety Social. Safety Social is something I'm a member of and I find it so beneficial, and I'll explain why in a minute. But can you just explain what it is?
Yeah, so the Safety Social is a network of health and safety risk management professionals who all come together kind of on an informal basis. So we, as the name suggests, we do social events, but we do sort kind of CPD, learning opportunities, and it's just genuinely a really good bunch of people who just support each other.
It is. A lot of health and safety people like myself, we work alone in the industry. And it's always great to be a member of such an organisation. If you need a second opinion, it's not your expertise, there's somebody likely to be in that group that really helps you out.
Yeah, there is. And I think if there's any listeners out there as well, it would be really good if you're in safety risk to get in touch and join us. Why not?
Yeah. IIRSM you mentioned as well. Can you just explain what that is, first of all?
Yeah, so IIRSM is the International Institute of Risk and Safety Management.
Bit of a mouthful.
It is. That's why it's IIRSM. And we, it's a membership body. It's a global membership body for people in risk and safety management. So my role now, I'm on council. I'm a trustee of the charity. So I've joined council in ensuring compliance and governance and setting out strategy and things like that for members.
Fantastic. You also judge awards for them as well, don't you?
I have done, yes. So for the last 4 years, I've been a judge for the awards. So the awards are coming up this May, actually, which is really exciting. So yeah, this year I judged 2 of the categories. So we'll look forward to seeing who the winners are.
You need a best podcast category moving forward.
Get you on it.
What makes a good judge for that sort of thing, do you think?
Oh, I've never been asked that before. I think what makes a good judge is... That's a really tough question, Kev. I think what makes a good judge is actually somebody who's genuinely interested in the industry and somebody who genuinely cares about the future of the industry and what that looks like, because a lot of these awards categories are about how people are better in risk and safety management. Yeah. So whether that could be a kind of system that they've implemented or a strategy that's gone really well for their business, or even individuals who get recognised with awards.
Which includes yourself last year. Myself. Go on, explain.
Yeah, so I won the President's Commendation Award with IIRSM, and that it was recognition. It was genuinely wonderful recognition for my input and my giving back to the risk and safety management profession, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's fantastic when you do win things like that, isn't
It's
it?
nice.
Is it a shock on the day? Did you know beforehand?
It was a shock.
It's
It was a
shock.
surprise. Yeah. It was very much a surprise to even just have been nominated for such an award and on such a level was amazing. So yeah.
And you get involved in the magazine, the journal Sentinel as well from the organisation, don't you?
Absolutely fantastic magazine, because I think with safety professionals now, the scope is very much broadening regularly, and you know, you'll know yourself when you go and visit your clients that you'll come across something that's not strictly health and safety, but it's good to have that wider kind of lens for you to say, actually, I know where to look for this, or I know who looks at this. So it's good for kind of awareness, really, wider awareness.
It's wider awareness, and for the likes of us, we've got to maintain a CPD. It's excellent for that sort of thing as well, isn't it?
Yeah, it is very much so, yeah.
Good. What's moving on to construction a little bit. You're into construction more than I am. I think there's quite a lot of people in construction, which is why I've sort of backed off a little bit from it, and not enough in the warehousing stroke factory side, which I do. But there's one main piece of legislation in construction health and safety, isn't there? Want to explain it?
The Construction Design and Management Regulations.
Another mouthful.
CDM for short. But yeah, it's basically the guiding legislation, really. So the Health and Safety Executive have got a guidance document to support businesses with managing construction sites.
HSG 150, is it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think you're testing me there.
I've written it down.
So yeah, that kind of runs through construction from planning to completion, really. And I think there is still very much this misconception that construction is just dirty building sites with high-vis vests, but it is very much a huge industry, and it's not just the actual site implementation. It's everything that goes before it and everything that comes after it that is kind of hidden, if you will. So I think, you know, in terms of planning construction sites, it's kind of like
they're forever changing, aren't they, as well, which makes it more difficult to plan.
Yeah. And there's obviously been a lot of rules change around legislation changes around fire and all that kind of stuff. So it's, at the minute, it is very much a rapidly changing landscape, and it's hard for companies to kind of keep up, really. Unless obviously they get the right professional help, it can be hard for them to ensure that they are being compliant with what they need to be.
So what does your role involve within when you're out at one of your clients, your construction clients?
So
how do you help them?
Yeah, so my role is very much about the ISO management systems and the standards that come behind that. So almost kind of like the planning, really, and the execution behind that. So it's all about maybe construction quality and how you manage quality, or how you manage the health and safety on site. And that can look like, because I often, like some of my construction clients actually have in-house health and safety. So they'll be the ones who will do site inspections, for example. So it's site inspections just to make sure that everything's up to date and as it should be, and, you know, like a kind of maintenance and improvement regime, if you will.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, just going back to the ISO stuff, it's about auditing that's actually happening, and it meets a certain standard for the business, because a lot of construction companies now are very much being held to account in terms of quality, not just health and safety. So it's about being able to demonstrate that as a company you are managing that risk.
Yeah. So you do that. You act as basically an internal auditor with them, do you? Or next?
Yeah. So I go in, help them set things up, review where they're at.
Yeah.
Kind of see if there's any gaps, if there's anything that they might have missed, or anywhere they can improve, really, and then support them in obviously progressing and making that whole system better. And then auditing them, So I do give my clients NCRs.
A few weeks ago, I was walking around with an external auditor for the ISOs around a factory, and all of a sudden about 6 or 7 of the factory workers suddenly turned and stopped what they were doing, turned facing me and started singing my theme tune.
Safety is his middle name.
the auditor just looked and said, What's going on? It was only Smiley had all day, to be honest, but there we go.
Oh dear. Oh dear, you don't want auditors like that.
No, but he was all right, to be honest. But yeah, it was quite nice, quite pleasant. That was just after the first episode.
Brilliant.
As well. So, but yeah, so which parts of construction do you really find interesting and you can get into when you?
There's loads I find interesting. Absolutely loads, but all for different reasons, to be honest.
Yeah, a few examples.
Yeah, so I think one of the main ones is, it sounds really boring to other people, but one of the main ones is kind of risk registers and understanding where the anticipated problems might be, what that looks like. So I'm very much in the planning stage, really. You might get a construction site in a city centre, for example, and something that you probably wouldn't anticipate is the fact that if you're in a city centre, obviously there's a lot of different people, a lot of homelessness, and unfortunately that does impact the site in terms of security. And I have had a construction site in the past where they have to clean up human poo, basically, because people are breaking into site and using it as a toilet. And that, it's not something you'd ordinarily consider when you say to somebody about construction, would you be picking up even like bags of dog waste from a scaffold 15 stories up because somebody's flinging it out the window? Like, it's not something that you'd ordinarily directly attach to construction. And I think obviously that comes with experience, doesn't it, and exposure to different things. So I think sharing that knowledge is definitely one of my favourite things and what I've learned. And getting people to understand, okay, well, no, it's a very real thing, so you do have to think about it. Well, we've never experienced it before.
It doesn't mean you're not going to.
Exactly. Yeah. And obviously there's a limit. You could guess that anything could happen, but I think relying on everybody's experience really matters. So that's another thing I'm big on as well, in terms like consultation as well, and making sure that everybody has a say in how things go.
Yeah. So other than poo, we've got a theme running in these podcasts. We had urine with Jan a few weeks ago, and now we've got poo with you. What other sorts of things do you enjoy relating to construction as well? Have you got any other?
Yeah. So I'll briefly mention then about consultation. So I've got a client on board at the minute who they're construction related. They're not strictly construction. You wouldn't say they were a construction company. But we're reviewing all the risk assessments, method statements and things like that. So I've said I'm really keen on speaking to the guys on a one-to-one basis, entirely confidential. I need some good feedback and some input in terms of what happens. And do you know what? It was lovely just actually speaking to all different people. And I doubt that he'll listen to this, but Big Al, if you're out there, punk rocker, we had a great conversation, and it's just getting to know somebody beyond like a health and safety quiz. It's very much like the people side, I guess.
Yeah. Have you ever had to sort of, without mentioning any companies, obviously, or anything, any things that you've seen, oh my God, you really shouldn't be doing that, get them to stop?
Oh, yeah.
And explain.
Yeah, I don't even know. So this was a lot earlier on in my career, and I would obviously do things very differently now. But I remember just being across. So it was a maybe 5-6 story building, and I was across the site. It was kind of like a huge courtyard set up, and myself and the project manager looked across the scaffold and actually saw the manager holding the labourer by his ankles over a glass balcony. Yeah. So I've definitely seen some terrifying things, but then at the same time, like there is still some funny things as well. There are still some funny things. So there was one. It was a high-rise building, and they were using mass climbers. So as you do in the morning, you go in, you do your pre-use checks, and they found a huge. I'm just going to say adult toy. They just found a huge adult toy which had somehow managed to slip out of a resident's window. So I'm in the office and I get this email saying, look what we've found. And it's, So...
Fair enough.
So it's unpredictable.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah.
And some contractors can be unpredictable as well, I'm assuming as well. You've got the contractor management side of things.
Yeah, yeah. So I think, I guess everybody will probably see it on TikTok when there's like videos like, oh, this is how a scaffolder behaves, this is how an electrician behaves, and yeah, you do get personalities in the different trades. And I think from me starting in construction all those years ago, when I first started, I had a manager. Keep in mind, I was late teens, early 20s maybe, and he was shouting up and down, screaming in my face. I was doing my first safety inspection, and I'm just like, what on earth is this? And it was very much acceptable to just scream and shout at people, and just, obviously it's not now. So there is some changes, and there are some things that have got better, but it is very much still a slow pace for change industry.
I think that's the same. It's getting better, but women in construction, that's definitely see more and more women in construction nowadays than you ever did. But it's still very much lacking compared to the men, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, they do the Women in Construction Awards now, which I won one.
Another award.
But there is mechanisms out there to celebrate women in construction, women in heavy industry.
Yeah.
And I think people like yourself, though, as well, Kev, to be fair, you are very much an ally for women in safety and women in profession and all the rest of it. So I think people like yourself, obviously a very good thing for women who are trying to break into industry and progress.
There's one in particular issue that I know you've talked to me about in the past as well, and that's PPE for women.
Yeah.
Particularly in construction.
Yeah.
PPE is all designed for men.
Yeah.
And not for women. Yeah. What do you think about that? What do you think needs to be done, or is it being done?
There's some change going on, and there's a whole. The name slips my. I can't remember the name, but there is people out there now who are campaigning for this, who are making a difference, and who are putting brands forward, who are doing diverse PPE, because it's not. I don't think it's just about men, to be honest. About men and women. I think, traditional old PPE, whatever you want to call it, is very much for a certain build.
Yeah, yeah.
So if you get the larger man, for example, or somebody who's got a bit more of a belly on them, then they're going to find it difficult to get some PPE. Do you know what I mean? So I think just in general, it is still kind of an issue for right fitting PPE rather than just off the shelf one size fits all, because it just doesn't, does it?
I've had issues with a couple of my clients lately about footwear and safety footwear for women. Yeah. There's not the choice that there is on men, and women do have different feet than men, especially if they wear heels when they're not working. Yeah. I'm not saying have heels with safety boots, but there we go. But it's quite difficult to find decent PPE sometimes that fit certain shapes.
It is.
Definitely right.
It is, yeah.
Yeah. And sticking with PPE as well, the other day I turned up to one of my clients and there's somebody in a pink high vis, and you think, there's only certain colours actually allowed by law. Yellow, the orange that's called red, and a bit of an intermediate red as well, isn't it? They're the only real ones that are allowed anywhere, but you see all sorts of colours these days.
Yeah, well, there's little lace ones and everything around now. So.
It certainly is. If there was one thing that you'd want to tell construction sites that you must do that they're not doing, what do you think you would say?
Oh,
Sorry, it's a question that we've not prepared.
Yeah. Do you know what? I don't think it's about going telling them that they're not doing something they should be doing. I think for me, it's very much about how can it be done better? How can it be done well to make sure that you're actually complying? It's your risk. It's your decision. Ultimately, it's down to you in terms of how you manage health and safety and risk. So for me, it's about how do people get better at doing this? Because there might be a lot of things that they're not aware of. Because if I'm talking to a construction director, for example, he knows a lot about construction. He might not necessarily know as much about safety and compliance. Yeah. So that's kind of where we'd work together and come to some kind of path forward, like some kind of route forward for that business to manage their risk.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, an example that I come across fairly regularly, not as much now with my clients because I've changed their mindset on it, is they just grab a brush and dust flies everywhere, no mask, no nothing in place. That seems to happen quite regularly.
Yeah.
Talking of dust, obviously silica dust has been a huge issue in construction for years. HSE have had campaign after campaign about it. Is that something you see on site? A lot of issues relating to dust?
It depends. So on much bigger construction companies, they are very strict on that. So they're using vacuums with the HRM filters that are for construction sites. The construction industry is struggling a bit to kind of get younger people into industry. But where you do see younger people, they are very health conscious and they are... So it is kind of refreshing to see
old
somebody.
habits that are the harder ones to change.
It's old habits, definitely. And people that have been in the industry too long, and people will often say, well, I've been in this industry too long. I'm done for now. It doesn't matter to me anymore.
I've always done it that way.
Yeah. But it really does. And like it kind of breaks my heart sometimes when you are speaking to somebody who's a bit more seasoned in construction and they say, oh, well, damage is done now. It's like, no, it's not. Like you're going to retire at some point and you've still got a life after retirement. Yeah. So just limit the damage you're doing to yourself.
If you could change one thing about health and safety in general, what would it be?
That's a tough question. I think it would be telling people they're doing things wrong, to be honest, because they're probably not aware. But if they are, you know what I mean? Like you can have a conversation once or twice and be like, come on, we've spoke about this. But then there is a point when somebody's intentionally or consciously doing something they know they shouldn't be doing. So I think there's very much a kind of, compliance is important, but it's not the be all and everything. No. So we need to have conversations around it. People need to understand why.
Yes,
and why that matters to them, why it matters to the business. So
yeah, what can happen if you carry on doing that one day? It might not all go to plan and that sort of thing. So how much do you think behaviour has changed because of legislation over the last few years?
I think there's been a lot of change in behaviour on construction sites. I'm not sure how much of it's down to legislation in particular. I think there is new things that are coming out, like the new PAS standards, for example, and they're around competencies. There's a lot more conversation around behavioural safety on construction sites and what that means. So, for example, understanding that individual actions actually do impact the end user, and attitudes in terms of different trades and the integration and the crossover. So I do think there's a bigger focus on behavioural safety in construction, and I do think it can very much benefit the industry moving forward. Yeah. That being said, I do think it will be a bit of work as well, because like I've said, I think it's just an industry that's a bit slower on the uptake when it comes to change. Yeah, yeah. And it's not a criticism of the industry, because I think it is quite difficult. It's a difficult industry to be in. So it's just, I think it's just some focus on behavioural safety and just not tolerating certain behaviours, really, which has obviously been a historical problem. Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you very much for joining us today, Melissa. It's been really enjoyable and interesting. It has. It's been fun. Thank you for having me. Not a problem. Not a problem. As we talked about earlier on, the Safety Social, I'm a member of it, and so are 90 plus other health and safety professionals. And we're not competitors. We all help each other. And the whole reason for us doing that is we want people to go home at the end of the shift the same way they arrived in the morning. And for that reason, safety isn't my middle name, it's our middle name. Take care. Safety is